What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me with this review of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Season 12, Episode 13. Now, Garcelle and Dorit, they're having dinner or lunch together, and they're over their feud. They've kissed and made up, so now they're good. So, Garcelle is telling Dorit that she is writing a book or has written a book and about her life, and I'm just like, wow, I really want to read that book. I want to read Garcelle's book. I feel like with her being not quite like, she's definitely, to me, I think she's an A-list celebrity. Everybody knows who she is. She's been on successful television shows, movies, etc. So to me, I see her as an A-list celebrity, but she's not like on that level of like an Angela Bassett or a Meryl Streep, you know what I mean? But she's definitely to me like A level. But I think that she is in that position in Hollywood where she can tell a lot of stories without worrying about burning a lot of bridges. So I think that her experiences in Hollywood are probably very interesting to read about. Obviously, her being Haitian and that aspect of her life, I think would be also very interesting. Having twin boys, I want to read Garcelle's book, and I'm gonna see if I can. Then they talk about PK's fake DUI. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. This whole situation to me is just, I feel like Dorit and her husband, they're just making up stories to stay relevant, to stay interesting. And that's why they probably, I don't know if these cops were their friends or if they hired them to supposedly stop PK in the middle of the night somewhere, drive him around the block a couple of times, drop him off at home, and now they're calling it his DUI incident. I just don't have the time for this. And I like Dorit, and I'm not saying this because I don't like her. I like Dorit, but I'm not buying this whole PK DUI thing. Moving on from there. Oh, by the way, Garcelle mentions in her confessional that if it was a person of color, most likely if this was the same situation, yeah, you would not, the cops would not have been driving you home. You probably most likely would have been going to jail and you'd be lucky to make it out alive. So then they talk about Erika, and Garcelle tells Dorit that Erika had fallen and she hit her head. I think it was after Diana's Christmas party because, Erika was lit once again. And Garcelle said that she went home and she ended up falling and hurting herself. And I think at this moment is when Dorit feels like she needs to kind of be the big sister to Erika whenever they go out. I think that's when Dorit made up her mind that she was going to keep her eye on Erika. And also Garcelle tells Dorit that Erika had said Sutton was a liability to Garcelle. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. Moving on to Erika. She's having like a little impromptu or casual business meeting with her little crew. Mickey, the guy that's always with her, Mickey and her publicist and some other chick. And they're talking about her hair business. And then she mentions that Mauricio, Kyle's husband, had mentioned to her that he wants to set her up with someone. And I'm thinking the only reason why they're mentioning this is because we're going to see probably a possible love interest for Erika somewhere along in this season. But I think right now, I do not imagine Erika getting married again. I don't think she wants to go down that road ever again. And I think right now, Erika is having the time of her life as much as she can because these legal issues are still, brewing in the background. So it'll be fun to see some scenes with Erika going out on a date, interacting with a man other than, her husband, Mr. Girardi. After that, they talk about how Erika tells them that somebody had mentioned to her, one of her, paramours, had mentioned to her that she should probably consider being a dominatrix. And I was like, why hasn't anyone thought of this before? Because I can totally see Erika as a dominatrix. I think she's got that whole dominatrix thing down pat because she's got that aggressiveness, the bossiness, that thing about, being very controlling. Her outfits, she can come up with a bad dominatrix outfit. So I'm like, yes, I totally see her as being a dominatrix. If she takes that seriously, she'll be very successful. She says all she needs is about 5 old men clients, and she's probably going to be set for life. And she can call it the Pretty Mess Dungeon. Moving on from there, Lisa. So Lisa and Sutton have this dinner. Now we know that Lisa and Sutton were feuding, right? They were having conflict last season, and I think even this season too. They don't see it for each other. Lisa and Sutton are not best friends at all. So they decided to have this dinner together, and I felt like the purpose of this dinner was for Lisa to put Sutton in a very comfortable position so that Sutton would come over to the wine tasting that happened later on in the episode, and so that Erika and Lisa can just attack Sutton. That's what I think the purpose of this lunch was. Because it just didn't make any sense for Lisa and Sutton to be having lunch together. Because, Lisa's not going to waste her time with someone that she doesn't really care for. So during this dinner, it felt like I felt tension from Lisa. I felt like she probably really didn't want to be there, but felt like she had to do this for them to set up Sutton for what was going to happen later. So Sutton thinks this is just a normal, casual dinner, with a girlfriend. They talk about what Sutton had said about the Elton John gala. Evidently, Sutton had gone on Watch What. This all happened last semester. I mean, last season. So Sutton had gone on Watch What Happens Live, and even on the show itself, she said this. She talked about how there was this Elton John gala. Supposedly, Lisa and Harry Hamlin didn't buy tickets or something, and so Sutton ends up inviting them as her guest to this Elton John gala. And she says that Lisa and Harry Hamlin never thanked her for it. And she talked about this on the show. If it was it earlier this season or was it last season? I think it was, I don't even remember, but she definitely talked about this on Watch What Happens Live. So that really hurt Lisa's feelings that she said that. Lisa completely denied it. I don't know what Lisa's defense was. I don't know if her defense was we did say thank you, or if her defense was that they did buy tickets. I don't really remember, but it really hurt Lisa's feelings. And but according to this lunch that they're having, that was water under the bridge. Sutton had apologized to Lisa. Lisa acted like she was over it. So she sets up this illusion, Rinna does, she sets up this illusion that she's good with Sutton, that she's over that whole Elton John situation. So moving on from there, we get to the wine tasting. So at the wine tasting, of course, COVID is still running rampant over there, and some people were not able to make it. Kyle didn't come, and Diana didn't come. So they're all sitting there at the wine tasting, and the first thing that they want to talk about is Crystal. They talk about her eating disorder, and they talk about how she's purging and just like she's going through it with her eating disorder. And Rinna keeps on saying for her to get over this because Rinna's own daughter suffered from, I think it's called bulimia, if you are eating and then vomiting your food. I think it's called bulimia. So her daughter had it too. And so Rinna was saying the only way for Crystal to get through this is for her to get professional help. That'd be the only way for her to get through this. Now, Sutton says in her confessional that she does not feel comfortable talking about someone when that person is not there. But she did contribute her own 2 cents to that whole issue. Now it's time for the wine tasting. Now, when Erika first arrived at Rinna's house and there were, requesting drinks and stuff, Erika only requested chamomile tea. And so we were under the impression that Erika is staying on top of it because she understands that when she's on her medication, she cannot be drinking. But then when the wine tasting actually begins, she partakes. She's drinking the wine. She's guzzling the wine down. And Dorit is noticing this, and Dorit is telling her that she needs to slow it down. Remember, you said you weren't going to be drinking. Erika isn't trying to hear none of that. So then Dorit tells Garcelle that she has a friend who's really, really, really interested in Garcelle. He thinks that Garcelle is the most beautiful woman in the world, and he really wants to meet her. All I can say about that is I want to see who this man is. I am interested to see who is this man that is so smitten with Garcelle, because I want to know if this is going to be like an actual true love connection for Miss Garcelle. And of course, then Erika brings up the fact that she's also involved with someone. There's a particular person that is servicing her every single night. And so Cherie asked, well, if was it Cherie or was no, it was Dorit. It was Dorit that asked Erica, well, if you're being serviced every single night, then you're in a relationship. You're dating this person. And Erica's like, no, no, we're just having a good time. No, we're not. I'm not seeing anybody. I'm not dating anybody. So that's that. Erica and Garcelle, they have a conversation on their own, and Erica Garcelle wants to know like exactly why Erica had said what she said about Sutton being a liability, and their whole conversation is centered around that. So Erica is sticking by what she said, that Sutton is a liability for Garcelle. And I've said this before. I don't know if Sutton's a liability, but I don't understand that whole Sutton Garcelle friendship. I don't. Out of all the women in this group, I don't understand how or why Garcelle has latched herself to Sutton. That friendship to me makes no sense. So they talk about how Sutton was insensitive to Dorit about her home invasion, and Garcelle agreed that she did get on Sutton's case about that she did show insensitivity to that whole situation. And then Garcelle asks if they can include Sutton into their conversation. And Erica was like, no, that's not necessary. She doesn't want to talk to Sutton. So they talk about how Garcelle doesn't believe everything Erica has said about her legal situation. She believes that some of the things that Erica has said about her legal problems have been out and right lies. Like she believes that Erica has been lying about certain situations. Then our Garcelle and Erica, they go back to the group, and as soon as they get back to the group, because Garcelle has already told Sutton that Erica had said she was a liability to Garcelle, so when they get back to the group, Sutton comes guns blazing. She directs her attention to Erica, and she says, I don't appreciate you telling people that I'm a liability as a friend. If you think that I'm a liability as a friend, you need to direct that directly to me. You need to bring that up to me directly, and don't say it behind my back." And so then Erica explains why she believes that Sutton is a liability for Garcelle. So she tells them that when it comes to Garcelle supporting Sutton as a friend, she supports Sutton as a friend. So if anybody gets into it with Sutton, Garcelle will do her due diligence as a good friend, and she'll tell people, hey, kind of lay off Sutton, give Sutton a chance, show some grace to Sutton. She's going through something. She's there trying to put out the flames, trying to like have people treat Sutton a little bit better. She really didn't mean it when she said that. That's not what her intent was. She's acting like her PR agent or her attorney, trying to spin things so that people don't think so negatively about Sutton. But Erica says, when it comes to if Garcelle gets into it with somebody, it's not Sutton going around asking people to show grace to Garcelle. It is Sutton going around attacking the people that Garcelle is having a feud with. For example, when Garcelle and Rinna got into it over Harry Hamlin's tomato sauce. I forgot what the issue was. Garcelle wanted some tomato sauce from Harry Hamlin, and evidently, was it that Garcelle didn't say thank you after she received the sauce? I forgot what it was, or she didn't mention how good it was, something like that. She didn't do something. She didn't show appreciation in some way about this damn sauce. And so Lisa Rinna felt some kind of way about it. So this created a feud between Garcelle and Rinna over tomato sauce. And so instead of Sutton going to Rinna and saying, hey, Garcelle isn't like that. She was extremely appreciative over the sauce. She raved about it or whatever. Instead, Sutton goes on national television and attacks Rinna and her husband by saying that she had invited them to the Elton John gala and they never said thank you. So this is what Erica means, that she's a liability, because I guess, the people that are in your group, in your friend group, she's attacking them, and they in turn are probably feeling some kind of way towards Garcelle. So this brings up, Lisa is triggered, right? When they talk about Harry Hamlin. Now she's triggered. So now she talks about how that was really embarrassing for her. It really hurt her feelings when Sutton was on national television talking about, how Harry Hamlin and Rinna never said thank you for her inviting them to the Elton John gala. And Sutton was like, well, I had no idea that it would hurt you that way. And Rinna said, well, there's a reason why you decided to do that. There's a reason why you got on national television to blast me like like that. And you need to figure out what that reason is. And so then Sutton says, well, I'm kind of confused because at our lunch, you made it seem like you were over it. You know, you were good. And which is true. That's exactly what Rena did. But I think that it was just a setup for Sutton to come to this wine tasting for them to do what they're doing exactly right now. And so Rena says she wants Sutton to admit that what she said on Watch What Happens Live was said out of spite and nothing more. And of course, Sutton is not going to admit that. And so then Sutton says, we're talking out of both sides of your mouth because one minute you're telling me that you're fine, we're over it, you know, you got over it. And now you're telling me that you're still bothered by it. And so that's when Rena got really upset and says, well, you talk out of both sides of your mouth too. And she says, you know what? If you ever come for my family again, I'll hunt you down. I mean, Rena went berserk on Sutton. She told the woman to get out of her house. She told her, you know, don't talk about my husband, don't talk about my kids. And she was like screaming, and I will hunt you down if you ever talk about my family. It was insane. And so Rena was a little bit drunk because one minute she was screaming at Sutton, next minute she was laughing uncontrollably. So yeah, Rena was a little bit, you know, a little bit drunk. But my take on this episode and this whole entire scene was, like I said before, I think it was a setup for Sutton to come over to that damn wine tasting so they can attack her like this. Or not attack, confront her. I'll hope that. Now, what about what Erika said? Is there any validity in what Erika said? There might be some validity if Erika could come up with more examples. I don't remember that situation with the Elton John gala. I thought that I don't remember exactly what happened. I do remember something about Sutton had invited Rena and her husband, but I thought that they bought their own tickets. That's where I was confused because I thought Rena had said that they did buy their own. Their whole issue was whether or not they bought tickets, and I thought that Rena was said that she did buy tickets, and but Sutton said that they didn't buy tickets, and so she invited them as her guest, and they never thanked her. And she only brought that up, according to Erika. She only brought that up because Rena and Garcelle were feuding over tomato sauce, which to me doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really make any sense. I don't remember Garcelle and Rena necessarily feuding. I don't think it was a feud. It was probably a slight misunderstanding. And, you know, Rena being so protective of her husband, she probably felt like, you know, Garcelle should have gone on all of her social media platforms, posted pictures of the sauce, raved and raved and raved about the sauce. And maybe that's what Rena was expecting because Garcelle really liked the damn sauce when she ate it. And so maybe Rena was expecting more when she came and dropped off a couple of bottles of that tomato sauce. I have no idea, but I just don't know. I really don't see the connection between that and Sutton going on television and trying to make Rena and Harry Hamlin look bad. I thought that maybe Sutton was just really upset about the fact that she invited them to this gala, and maybe she felt like they were taking advantage of her, like they were just using her to get into this very prestigious, exclusive event. And they couldn't even say thank you. They didn't even have to buy tickets. They didn't have to spend any money at all. I'm inviting them as my guest, and they can't even give me a thank you. I think that's where Sutton was coming from. I think Sutton felt very slighted about that. I don't think Sutton was like, well, I'm gonna go on national television and talk about them because, you know, Rena doesn't like Garcelle right now. I don't know. I don't see it that way. That doesn't make any sense to me. It kind of doesn't. But Erika's going to do whatever she can to either break up the friendship between Garcelle and Sutton or to throw as much mud as possible at Sutton. Because Erika's not over her issue with Sutton. You know, Sutton acting the way she did about Erika's legal troubles. Yeah, that's my review. Thank you so much. I've gone on way too long. I really do appreciate it. On your way out, don't forget to rate the video. If you like this content, please subscribe. If you don't worry about it. Thank you for stopping by anyway, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.